in our language, poil mamish. Everything is prepared. That's what the Rebbe built us up, and the Rebbe held us in that line, in that, how do you call it, hanocha, pshuta, that everything is mochan. If everything is mochan, shalom aleichem, if everything is mochan, first at the shaila, what is happening, if everything's mochan. So I think we've got to realize that mikan or lahaba, maybe there are chosen individuals that anyway have been doing that. I'm not a very, sort of public figure, so I don't know about that side of it. But we've got to become what you call Anshei Maisa. It's brought down in the Mishnah, in Masechta Sukkah, the last period, when it get to how the great Rosh Yeshivas and the Rosh Sanhedrin and the great Torah figures dance by the Simchas Pesach Shoyeva. And it's much more over there. If you look up in the Meforshim, you'll see that it was only the big Chakmei Eidah, the Rosh Yeshivas and the Rosh Sanhedrin and the great Rabbonim, they are the ones that dance. And all the other people came to join in, but to only watch. They didn't actually dance. Dancing, getanzt, the Anoshim Chashuvim, Gedelim, the Rosh HaTorah, B'inyanei HaTorah, they used to dance. And so they're called, the Lashon HaMishnah, Chsidim v'Anshei Maisa. It seems to me that there's a remez padova, and that is that if you're a chosid, then you also have to be a ish maisa, because it's written chasidim ve'anshei maisa. So it would be possible, perhaps, to learn in the Mishnah that there's two different types of people, the chasidim and the anshei maisa. But if you look carefully at the Lashon, chasidim ve'anshei maisa is a general expression referring to one person. He's both a chosid and he's a ish maisa. Well, from that we see that if you're a chosid, then you've got to be also a ish maisa. In other words, that there could be a possibility of being a chosid, but you're not necessarily a ish maisa. You follow? So what you got to do is you got to be mamshik from the matzav of being a chosid into the inyan of ish maisa. Nowadays, who push the line of Mashiach? Who pushes it? Who keeps it in front of the eyes of the people? And who brings the whole message to people that they live with the reality of the Geula? Those are the Chassidim. But the Chassidim have to be very careful that they shouldn't fall into a matter where they're just, teaching what it's supposed to be like when Mashiach comes, or, they represent the idea of Mashiach and everything, although they don't necessarily bring it to the point of Maisa. We've got to have poil mamish. In other words, we've got to be Chassidim, but Anshei Maisa. Chassidim and Anshei Maisa. So, I have approved that is the case from the Parshas Hashavua, this week's Parsha. And the Rebbe said you have to learn everything from the Parsha where you are. So we see that the Yidden got out of Mitzrayim, and Pari chased after him, and it didn't help him and helped him. Although it reached a sort of a crisis point where the Yidden are standing mamish on the sand, how they call it, the edge, the safar of the Red Sea, of whatever that may be, the Yam Suf. Yeah, they're standing there. If you look back, then you see 600 Sheish Mei Selef, how do you call it? All sorts of chariots and solas at the Mitzrim, and they're coming at a high speed behind you, and there you are. So, what are you supposed to do? What is the line in a situation like that? So Moshe Rabbeinu, he's the leader, and we find that there are 4 different groups. The famous Sikha from the Rebbe, based on the Targum Yonasan and the Mechilta, and also in the Pirkei, the Rebbe Eliezer. There's a whole picture of here's Moshe Rabbeinu at the center, and he's got the whole Jewish people, and he's in a very tight spot, and he got 5, according to one opinion, or 4, according to the generally accepted opinion, 4 groups, all of which are very powerfully putting forward their case as to what are we supposed to do in a Zamatu. What are we going to do? So you had 4 or 5 different people. So it's written that one of these people hold, or one of these groups hold, that you have to pray. And it would seem a large majority of the people in that matter, they were also of the opinion that that's what you should do. And so it's written that the Yidden prayed, they shouted to the Eibishter. They prayed in a very loud voice, very powerfully, to the Eibishter. And so when you think about it, that's a pretty justifiable line, given the matter, given the situation. That seems to be a pretty acceptable and presentable thing to do. So everybody started praying. And it's mashma that Moshe Rabbeinu also joined them. Because the beginning, I think, at today's Chittas, is that Hashem said to Moshe, what are you shouting to me? What are you praying and what are you shraying to me? So it would appear that Moshe Rabbeinu also joined in. So some people want to say that maybe Moshe Rabbeinu joined in, but he had a slightly different line than everybody else. Everybody else was shraying, Shavas, Avis, we're in a very tight spot here. You got to get us out of this, Moshe Rabbeinu had a slightly different line, but he was also praying to Hashem. He's got all these kittas which are throwing him a cough. And Moshe Rabbeinu also realized that you got to do something. You can't just, how do you call it, shrey. You got to do something. But there's 5 different opinions as what you're supposed to do. So Moshe Rabbeinu was trained to Hashem that he should show him what's the right way. Well, that's already a better case. Nonetheless, Rashi says that David says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm sorry, but this is not the moment to be ma'arich b'tfilah. It's not the time. They had to go down bariches at this particular moment. For Wuskas Yidden are in a very tight spot. Yidden, Nasuni Petzorah. He said, you as the leader, you haven't got time to stand around praying. Elamai, Daber al B'nai Yisrael, talk to the Yidden, Ein lahem ela v'yisou. In other words, what did I tell you guys right from the beginning? That I'm taking you out of Egypt, and I'm going to take you to Matan Torah on Har Sinai. And I made it clear that that's what's going to happen. So you've come to the Red Sea, and Har Sinai is still, Ploini area, and the journey is kach v'kach. So what is the final maskana? That I just got to keep going. What's going to be with the Yam? What's going to happen with the Yam? That's not your problem. Your problem is you got to keep going. I said to you, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. Nimtza, Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, that you shouldn't pray too much, because now at this particular moment, the Ike is Maisa B'Poyo. You follow? Ella, there's just one, as it were, what you might call trick to the whole trade. And that is, there's a union, and that is that the Maisa at this particular point requires emunah and bitochen in a very special way. It requires faith and trust in the Eibishter in a very remarkable way. In other words, that I see, everything that's happening behind. I see in front of me, a sea, and yet nonetheless I've been told that I've got to go to Ba'ad Sinai, I've got to go to Mount Sinai. So what is the only thing I can do is just keep walking. But for that I need to have what's called emunah and bitochen in a very powerful way. I need to believe that even if I will jump into that sea or I'll walk into it, that it's going to have to worry and not me. The problem was, because the Eibishter told me clearly what I'm supposed to be doing. It's the problem of the sea, not my problem. Normally speaking, that's not the way things work. You need to have a very special type of bitochen. But you need to have a bitochen which is shaykh l'maisa. It's got to come, maisa b'poyo. And therefore, there was one guy, according to the Gemaras, at Machlokas, there were two people that are brought down by the Gemara that are the ones that did it. Either the Nasi from Ephraim or the Nasi from Yehuda. Or the Nasi from Yehuda is Nachshon ben Aminadab. What did he do? He jumped off the rock into the sea. And so what happened was the sea began to split. In other words, exactly like Hashem promised right from the beginning, that the sea has to worry, not you. You have to have enough bitochen to realize that the sea has to worry, not you. You just had to go. Hashem says to keep going. You just keep going. And at that particular point, you shouldn't be married but tefillah. In other words, that some people say an amazing thing, that if at a moment like that you've got to do a inyam b'poyel, and you have to bring Moshiach b'poyel mamish, there's got to be a inyam b'poyel mamish. If you spend a lot of time praying, then that sort of arouses Lamaila, a special examination of your prayer. And people will say, this guy's, hacking away with a ganze riches of telling, let's see, who is he after all, what's all this. But if you have a simple faith and a simple betoken, and you go ahead, vapoyo, mamish, like it's supposed to be, like Hashem really meant, then he doesn't reckon with who you are. It just so happened that it was a Nasi that he jumped into the sea. That was, he called Nachshon ben Aminadab. But it's mashma that it didn't have to be him. He was the one that undertook the task. It could have been anybody. All it needed was somebody to start the ball rolling. And it could have been anybody. Because the Ike, you just got to do with the pshitas and not spend, at that moment, not spend a lot of time davening of a poil mamish. And that type of attitude, that brought about poil mamish. So, I want to now put in what he called a parenthetical remark. I want to put in something in brackets. And that is that it's written in the Torah that Hashem said to Moshe, Ein azman kaish lahari betfilah. At this moment, it's not a time to take a long time with your davening. However, that was what he said at that particular moment. However, he didn't mean by that you shouldn't on other occasions, take a long time with your davening. In other words, he didn't mean to cancel out Chas v'Sholem at the Eibishter. Didn't mean a thing like that. On the contrary, yeah, the whole Inif and Tomchei Tmimim, Lubavitch, which is where we all draw our mother's milk from, let's face it. Yeah. The whole Inif and Tomchei Tmimim, Lubavitch, the Rebbe Rashab said when he founded it, that he wants to teach Bochrim how they should learn to daven. They should learn how to daven. Over Meira, there's absolutely no doubt that was what Hashem said to Moshe, when you got to get moving, you got to be a Ish Meiser. There's certain times where you can't mess around. You got to bring everything before you got to go ahead into the sea. But at other moments, once you've got through the sea, then you have to be Mari B'Tefillah. What I want to say, and I haven't had a lot of mashki. I don't drink it right now. I haven't touched mashki. I'm only been saying l'chaim on wine. But I am very disturbed, and I'm bothered by it. That pretty much throughout Lubavitch, the minyonim daven very fast. And it's getting worse. It's getting faster and faster. And the better you are able to rush through the davening, the better you're sort of one of the guys, you're acceptable, you know how to rush it off, and come on, let's get moving, I'm very, very concerned about it because it's happening everywhere. Yeah. And Davki, the young generation, the Bochrim that are growing up, I don't know where they're getting it from, but they are davening quicker than the Balabatim. Some of the Bochrim daven even quicker than what the Balabatim do. And the Balabatim don't do such a bad job of davening quickly either. But maybe they got certain reasons to hold things up a bit. So I want to tell you, there was an old saying by the Chassidim. I heard it from Chassidim, V'anshi Maisa, from real Chassidim. And that was that they used to say like this: we have to have Moshiach should come, and Moshiach has to come, mamish beregazeh. Over, I want and I pray to Hashem that Moshiach should find me in a certain situation. You understand? So the Chassidim used to say they don't want that Moshiach should happen say in the Gatkis. Moshiach shouldn't have them when they, putting on their long underwear with once upon a time, people used to wear, long underwear, and they used to have separate braces for it, and it was that's called gatkis. Some people say it's referring to pajamas, but I don't think so. Anyway, whatever. It's a balbatish type of dress, but it's like underwear, So they used to wish themselves that Mashiach shouldn't have them when they're, wrestling with the gatkis, to get dressed, There you go. Everybody just looks so somber, Isn't maybe? They prayed, or they used to say, he rots in the Mashiach, so many schappen in the gatkis. You follow? However, the real Siddushim, they used to say, that's like the negativity. That's the Hasogas Hashlila. The real Chassidim, or when I say the real Chassidim, the stark Chassidim, they used to say, he rotten, a Mashiach should chap me when I'm sitting in the base meadows with my talis over my head, and my talis over my eyes, and I'm in the middle of a Chassidish Bonanas, in the middle of I'm down here, and I've got my talis over my head like that. So how am I going to see Mashiach? I've got my talis over my head. So he said, Mashiach will be so kind, he will come and lift up my talis, and he'll say, Shalom Aleichem Ayudon. Shalom Aleichem Ayudon. And he'll lift up your talis and say, Shalom. So all of a sudden you realize what's happening, then you go out of your kelim. But you should, the Mashiach, I'm sorry, just a few minutes, I'm in the middle of Krishna. You follow? So they say Mashiach will certainly be recovered, that he will put up with that fine, and no problem. In the meantime, we'll go to other shops. In the meantime, you finish off your davening. Oh, but that's what they used to wish, that should happen to them. You follow? Is a simon that being married, but tefillah is not interfering with your preparation for Mashiach. It's not that it's not part of it. It's got nothing to do with what Hashem said to Moshe, Ein Zman Lahari but tefillah. But that's a special, how do you call it, urgent situation that needs a certain amount of urgent activity. Of aware, we're talking about, how it should be our tefillah shacharis, and I don't know about davening mincha barichas over mariv over. It shouldn't be. It should be with the messinas, It should be all a daven via man should still shemanasrei via man. It should be in the oiven that the mensch is able to think, basically what's tutzing with him, and what's happening with him. He's davening to the Eivester, Oh man, in the morning when he puts on the tefillin and everything, the Alter Rebbe writes in Perek Mem Aleph what you're thinking about when you're putting on Talis Tefillin. It's written there in Tanya. Oh man, it's worse, how do you call it? A shmek tabik, a little piece of tabak, something. You should be able to think. If you bend down to scratch your toe or something, you've missed a minute. In the meantime, they've rushed further. Let's say something fell on the floor and you bent down to pick it up and you straighten yourself out. We just sit there already holding by your stomach, chapter. What on earth is going on? We have to realize that I already made this point the other day, and that is that they gave out a new edition of the Hatomim, the famous gathering together of all the copies of the original journal called Hatomim, and it's printed in 2 volumes now, very nicely printed with a very beautiful cover. And on the cover there's a picture of a chassid sitting Shabbos afternoon in a shul with his talis over his face, and he's davening. That's the picture on Hatomim. You follow? That's the picture on the thing. So I said to several people, look, that's what Hatomim is really supposed to be. That's the picture. That somebody is davening and he's taking his time, Where did this happen to us? How did this become part of the life of Lubavitch? So I think, we all have to do something to try, and each and every one of us has to try and make an effort. Because if you look in Tanya, in the last portions of the Tanya, before the actual siyum of Kol Kontra Sacharin, with the ganze does, the Alter Rebbe writes about these things very, very strongly. But he's not talking about that man sitting Shabbos afternoon davening on his own. He's talking about the minions. If you look carefully, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya is talking about the Tfilas HaTzibur. He's not talking about, there's certain people that they want to daven long and they'll sit the whole Shabbos afternoon. I remember Bochum when I first came to Eretz Yisrael. There were Bochum that was poshed by Zay, that the whole Shabbos afternoon they just spent time davening. From the moment that the minyan completed until Mincha, and the Shliach Tzibur had already gone to the Yomad, and he was already saying Ashrei for Mincha, and you got these Bochum who are desperately trying to make Kiddush, and have a little bit of Lechem Mishnah Yeah, before the Shliach Tzibur finishes, and they'll take out the turtle and be created for mincha. And they're still, and they would be wrestling around to try and find two little bukalak that were still whole, that they could use like a mishnah. Yeah. I saw a bucking like this. A mamish with my eyes. And this was a double rodeo. That was how they used to spend. And even in the summer, when it's a long afternoon, they would daven the whole afternoon. They would sit, and that was that was their whole Einik Shabbos. They were able to daven. And I once had a whole miser. I don't want to bother you guys, but maybe I'll just tell the miser. It's not all that terribly late, is it? No. So I'll just tell you the miser that shortly after Reb Mendel came to Kfar Chabad in Toshin Lamed Beis, Reb Shlomo Chaim Olav Sholem was mistalik in Toshin Lamed Aleph. And about a year later, Reb Mendel came to take over his position, and he was the mashpia in Kfar Chabad. So Reb Mendel was like Reb Shlomo Chaim in that he used to also daven long, on Shabbos. Even though he would farbrengen a bit after the davening, but he was early before davening by the farbrengen. And when they finished the farbrengen, he would sit and daven, but he would go home at a certain point. I mean, he didn't daven all the way through to mamish mincha. He would go home and be with his rebbetzim, and maybe he had a guest or who knows what. But late, but he would go home. So one Shabbos afternoon, I happened to be in Kfar Chabad for Shabbos, and I also was in the Zal late in the afternoon when it's time for mincha. And so I'm sort of here, and Reb Mendel came in, and he was coming for mincha. He'd also been davening a long time, but he'd gone home, and he'd gone home for mincha, and he came back into the Zal. So there was a bocher that was in a problem. He had a glass of wine that he drank. The kitchen was closed. By that time, they closed the kitchen. So these oidim, these guys that they davened like that, there was no way. They had to find shirayim. They had to find somewhere on the tables and all around the place, lechem mishnah and wine, because the kitchen was already closed. So he found himself a glass of wine, and he found himself a bukala and a half a bukala, torn in half, but he found a bukala and a half a bukala. You found it? This bocher. And so Reb Mendel comes walking in. Reb Mendel was always very friendly. He always had a happy look about him, Reb Mendel. That was his greatness. He was always sharui, but simple. And he always was mekabel you very positively whenever he met you. He was very... So Reb Mendel strides into the Zal, All of a sudden this bocher sees Reb Mendel, and he says, and he runs up to Reb Mendel, and he says, Reb Mendel, can I be yoitze? Can I perform my obligation? I've only found a challah mitahalban. In Yiddish, a challah mitahalban is, 1.5 challahs. I haven't got 2. But I have a glass of wine, but I've only got 1.5 challahs. So he said to Reb Mendel in Yiddish, "Ich konnte ein Yotze sein? Can I be Yotze with 1.5 challahs?" So I remember Reb Mendel didn't bat an eyelid, Reb Mendel just remained very calm. Reb Mendel smiled at him, and he said, "Kannst Yotze sein?" He said, "You can be Yotze with that." And he said, on the contrary, he said, if you've been davening the whole afternoon, then you have to realize that there's nothing more whole than a broken piece of challah. And he said, that is the most perfect whole challah that you'll be able to find. It's Tavki, a broken one. And he said, that is a emes lechem mishnah fadia. He said, nicht for a balabuit, somebody that went home very quickly after done. He needs to have 2 full challahs. He said, but fadia, what you've been davening the whole afternoon, you have to realize that fadia, this is for 1.5 challahs. So he said, you can be Yaitse, don't be Safek. But he was very, positive and very, authoritative about it. So the Bocher was just, absolutely out of his mind. Mendel gave him, so he sat down very quickly and he made Kiddush and he washed, and he gobbled down a few pieces of his 1.5 challahs, and the next thing he's rushing up to hear Kriyas HaTorah, for Mincha. And that's the way these Bochum used to live. I saw it with my